Running a cover and asking for a pizza.
But see, you know, there's a couple of ponds.
Oh yeah, that across the bridge.
That's what I did. Because you know, I couldn't get one of the snaps because there's two snaps, one on one side that ended off the air and one there. I wanted that to come in, it was close to half. So I figured I got to put it stretch out. But I had that. My other hand was up.
They got that big field behind Wayne's now.
Yeah, that's the interesting one. Hopefully, we'll try to get it on.
Wait another 2 minutes. I'm not planning on getting that way. Wait until 5 more minutes
I love it. It's funny.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Says one mile.
That clock is fast. Well, what I understand, I think you're good for some help. Just go down, come in down. It's worse. Yes. We always use cover container.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here now. Definitely. So tonight, this is a public hearing for two items. We have an item for
for the citizens petition for the 4,000-foot property line setback, and that's going to be first. And then there's a second hearing immediately following the first hearing. We'll have like a kind of like a pseudo-official open and close thing. Then the second hearing will be about the land use ordinance. So tonight, as probably most of you know, that there are no changes that can be made after tonight. I mean, or they have not been able to have been made for a couple weeks, as opposed to the last public hearing that we had in April. You know, we still had some time to make adjustments. So that's kind of what the rough format is. So just a couple of quick things, just because I wanted to, you know, it was brought up at the select board meeting last week. You know, I went back and I looked through the old notes and emails, you know, and there was a discussion about public hearings last time. And what happened was, this is the announcement from the public hearing last time. There were two public hearings. One was on Thursday, April the 8th, and one was on Thursday, May the 6th. And there was a vote on Tuesday, June 8th in 2010 for this. So we couldn't make, there were changes that could be made between the 8th of April and the 6th of May hearing, but there were no changes that could be made after 6th of May, because clearly it's 31 days and stuff like that. So that's how that hearing went. So I said I would look that up, and I did look that up, and here's this copy of the announcement, and it was forwarded to the select staff. So, and I do have a handout here so people can kind of look it over as the hearing's going on for the first part. This is actually directly germane to the first hearing. We're not going to have presentations from the planning board tonight. This is just a handout that I built. Basically, it shows where Clifton stands with regard. I'll give you a second to get those passed out. Hey, Jerry. But on one side of this handout, it pretty much shows a graph, and I had talked about it at the meeting that we had, was that special meeting we had a couple weeks ago, where the planning board recommended ought not to pass from 4,000 feet. At any rate, at that meeting, I referenced a fairly lengthy report that Bruce had found, and I printed that, I screen cut that report out, scanned that in, and I put a line across here showing, this red line shows where Clifton is, and this other graph on the bottom with the blue and the green shows where other countries and places are around the world with regard to their resident setback. So if you take a gander at that, you know, we're, you know, more restrictive than, you know, the places in that particular report. And I'm not going to say there's nothing else in the world that's more restrictive than Clifton for residential setbacks, but if you look at that, that's pretty good smattering around the planet of where things are, and we're already more restrictive than that. That one that's taller is for villages in Scotland, and villages, Bruce, what were the villages? You have to have like at least 30 houses or something like that. 3,000 houses. Okay, so you have to have, it's quite a, you know, that one is obviously, there's no place in Clifton, we don't even have 3,000 people living in Clifton. So anyway, that one doesn't really pertain to us. And then the second one down shows, the red line shows the sound setback that we have for residences at 35 decibels compared to other places around the world. And then the darker line above it shows the 45 decibel property line that's proposed in the land use ordinance for the property line restriction at 45 decibels. And you can see that that still falls within the parameters of some places in the world for what they have for residential restrictions. And then, or for property restrictions. And then the bottom one shows, there's a study in New England, glasses on again here, from the Massachusetts DEP Wind Noise Advisory Group study, and I think that one's linked online. And you can see from there, this is kind of a collection of villages and towns in New England that they plotted out in terms of distance for setback and sound parameters. And you can see that if you look at the red line, you know, you can see that Clifton is pretty far to the left, which is more restrictive than almost all the towns in there. And if you look at the distance setback, you know, it's more restricted than almost all of them, and the same as a couple. So this is something that's done from the Massachusetts DEP. So you can come a little bit of a world tour here first, and you see that we're pretty strict. And then you look at the New England tour, so to speak, from the Massachusetts DEP, which is, Massachusetts DEP is fairly restrictive on how they go about doing stuff. I don't know if people work with Massachusetts before, but they're not the easiest agency to work with. And anyway, that's that. Then on the back, just kind of shows Clifton with respect to, where it is in Bangor. It's kind of like an overall layout view of Clifton. And we have about 23,000 acres in Clifton. And so what I did is, the most simplistic way of plotting out like 5 wind turbines, which is kind of the object of the dispute, so to speak. So that's the thing that most people can understand here in town. I just lined them up, which would be kind of the shortest way you could make the smallest figure. So if you line them up and you make the smallest figure, you need 1,800 acres to do a 5 wind turbine project versus, like, depending on how you set them up now with the rules we have now, somewhere between 250 and 400 acres will do the trick here in town now, the way that the rules are. So anyway, obviously, 1,800 acres is quite a bit more than even 400 acres. And it's 8% of the size of Clifton. And then at the bottom, as far as people are concerned about how fast does the sound dissipate, well, if you look at the bottom, that graph shows between those two small lower lines, that graph is showing how fast sound dissipates over distance. So even if you look at it from a perspective of, we need more distance, to cover the sound issue, it's still only 2,700 feet at the worst to get down to 35 decibels. So it seems like if you look at the 4,000 foot standard from the planning board's perspective and looking at the numbers, if you just look at the numbers, it doesn't seem like it's that, it's that necessary to do something like that. So at any rate, that was the planning board's perspective. We made a recommendation to the select board and the town a couple weeks ago, and that's really all I had to say, about that particular document. So at any rate, does anybody need to have the petition read to them again? Okay, so we won't read the petition again. So I guess what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor and people can come up. We're kind of targeting 5 minutes a shot and see how it goes. For people to stand up and you don't have to come up front or anything. You stand up where you are, say your name, where you're from, and we'll take it from there. Anything you?
No, just that. We have a meeting room procedure, so it's best that we keep it to 5 minutes. I have a timer because we want everybody to have the opportunity to have their say, and hopefully can keep it at 5 minutes. So we'll do it.
Who wants to start? Be a quick hearing. I can't believe nobody wants to say anything about this. Paula? Nothing?
Move on. Go on to the next one.
I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to really think about it.
I have something to say to the audience, not the planning board, I'm speaking to the audience. I'm thinking about the difference that this 4,000 feet makes. And why is there any setback at all? Why is there a setback? Why even have one? Well, it's because the planning board decided 4,000 feet will provide residents with a measure of health and safety, because there are health and safety issues with wind turbines. So we're going to say 4,000 feet from houses will provide residents with some health and safety that will assure them that we're taking care of them. So the crux of this is we're saying, thanks, I want our property provided with that health and safety. A lot of people in town have their assets in their property. Their most valuable asset is their property. They may not have money in the bank. They've got property, and they have plans for their property in the future, plans that could bring them money someday. So with the setbacks starting at your house, your property can be in that unhealthy zone. And I don't understand why a wind developer would be granted a virtual right-of-way up to my door, not including my door. My house is safe. But he's got a virtual right-of-way that covers my land and there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm not compensated for it. It's just, sorry, that's the way it is, because we want this project done, and that's what's gonna provide for it to get done. And I don't think it's fair, and I think if people's house should be protected, their property should be protected. I don't know how anyone can argue about it. The sheet is interesting, they made comparisons. Obviously, they only looked for places that had a shorter setback. You don't have to go far to find longer setbacks. Towns in Maine that decide, okay, what are we gonna have for our town in Maine? Most of them, it's a lot more than 4,000 feet. 4,000 feet isn't even that far. You only have to go as far as Holden to find setbacks that are more than 4,000 feet from property lines.
Anybody else?
I'll just add a footnote to it. I'd just like to read down a list of the setbacks in other towns in Maine. In Eddington, 1 mile from a residence, 2,500 feet from property lines. In Holden, 13 times the tower height from property lines. In Freedom, 13 times the tower height from property lines after Beaver Ridge was established. Eastbrook, 1 mile from residences and scenic resources and 6,600 feet from a great pond. In Eastbrook, if there's a house closer than a mile, then they were compensated. In Rumford, 4,000 feet from property lines. In Buckfield, 1 mile or 13 times the tower height from property lines. 13 times 455 is over 5,900 feet. In Montville, 1 mile or 13 times the tower height from property lines. In Frankfurt, 1 mile from property lines. In Moscow, 1.5 miles from property lines. In Caratunk, 1.5 miles from property lines. In Jackson, 1 mile from residences, a half mile from property lines. In Thorndike, a mile from residences. In Industry, 13 times the tower height from property lines. In Woodstock, 1 mile from property lines after their experience with a wind energy facility. And the stated setback should be about a mile, and the World Health Organization recommends setback of at least a mile.
Do you want to leave those written comments?
I'm sorry?
Did you want to leave those comments, written comments, so we can post those?
Where those are?
No, did you want to leave me a copy of that and I'll post it?
No, that's okay.
I do have a question. Of all those towns, how many of them have windmills?
Well,
Actually, Duncan, tonight we're actually not having a back and forth. It's just pretty much,
Oh,
so sorry about that.
okay.
if they want to ask you and you want to ask us, we can do that.
That's all right. This is just for everybody to speak their piece and then from that.
So,
Go ahead, Bruce.
no questions from the floor?
Well, we were hoping to avoid, we wanted to give people a chance to talk. I mean, I don't know, I guess we really didn't set up for that.
Okay, I don't want to.
Do you want to do it that way? I mean, you don't have,
5 minutes now. They want to ask the questions. A lot of these people haven't been in the meeting.
all right, go ahead.
Yeah, well, my question was, one of the things out of the pending action is concern for the cost of litigation. And so as somebody that has not been here, I'm wondering, with the proposed resolution, has anybody either in the town or those that put forth the resolution made an inquiry with regard to, is this going to trip off another round of litigation because it's either unconstitutional or does not follow state law, or, I mean, because usually in business contracts, which I know a little bit about, to turn back the clock is either impossible or it does nothing but trigger another round of expensive lawsuits. So this is an innocent question. I'm not trying to state any.
Just on fairness to them, they have a retroactivity clause that, in the petition. The planning board has several retroactivity clauses in the land use ordinance. Retroactivity clauses typically are allowed for technical deficiencies and things like that, and sometimes for other reasons, for unactioned plans. The lawyer, Dave Sevchak, has indicated that he doesn't like the retroactivity clauses in any of them, except for he did say that he was in favor of the two retroactivity clauses were acceptable in the case of the, for the next topic, the gravel pits and the mobile home parks. He did say that those would probably be okay, but he was not okay with the retroactivity clause on the petition, and he felt that that might do what you just said, and he also felt that the retroactivity clauses that we left in Article 8 regarding the ISO contours may potentially spawn some litigation as well. So that's just in fairness to everybody. Cindy?
I'd like to say a few things.
Now this is just, you realize this is just about this 4,000 foot thing now, right?
4,000.
We're only on the first hearing now, just making sure.
About the turbines.
Right.
Okay. I just want to remind everybody, first of all, we voted on this several times. The majority of the town is in favor of these turbines. I haven't talked to anybody that's not in favor of them. But I do want to remind people that, yes, we have voted and voted down moratoriums by the task force with these in place. They don't like these things. They keep coming, costing the town money with more litigation and petitions and that sort of stuff. I wanted to bring up, I brought it up at the selectmen's meeting the other night. The biggest reason, and this is my personal opinion, that I'm for these wind farms, is the revenue. We seriously, for economic reasons, need these turbines in town. We don't have any other resources. We're depleting our fund balance, our savings account in town, on an average of $22,000 a year to keep our taxes tolerable. We have increased our mill rate $1.50 in the last 5 years. And we have lost, due to the same sort of thing that's going on now with the turbines, where we have lost roughly $825,000 over the last 14 years is what we would have roughly taken in by the pipeline if this sort of action hadn't taken place back then. The turbines are going to bring us stability. I don't think they're going to give us a big tax break. I don't know everything about the situation, but I went to the ones in Bull Hill, and there's no way they're going to hear those even out here or down 180. I checked at a half a mile, at 3/4 of a mile, nothing. There was no sound whatsoever. And I went on a day that you would be able to hear them more than anything because it was raining, the air was heavy, it was foggy. I don't believe you're going to be able to hear them. Honest.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello. Get up, get up.
Well, once. Twice. I haven't used one of these in years. So that hearing is closed. So now the next hearing is on the land use ordinance. So at any rate, Again, like we discussed, that is no longer open. One thing that happened, we were planning on voting on it on June 10th. And I don't know if it's been fully spread around. It's going to be on July 1st. There were some things that came up regarding what dates things need to be filed and under what particular statutes within the state of Maine. So the lawyers present that day decided that it needed to come under a referendum zoning type statute, and the planning board didn't realize that, and we thought we were coming under a town warrant statute, but that's not the way it worked out, so it got pushed out to July 1st, unfortunately, another extra 21 days to work through this. Anyway, that's the way it is, and we're here to take comments or listen to anybody who wants to say anything about that. We've had the website up since January. We've worked right through quite a few issues regarding it, and one thing that did come up, reviewing, Paula submitted about 25 items that she was concerned about, and one of the items is something that probably does need to be actioned. It's regarding the Article 13 changes. Article 13 is the article where we assigned growth management areas, and apparently if you make any changes in Article 13, you have to actually notify the landowners who are in the area that you're changing. Now, the only area that we really made any changes to that are really clear-cut changes is the area up by the industrial park. We did went through and cut out a lot of the small, retail-type shops out of the industrial area and kind of limited that to industrial sort of uses, except for we did keep the adult entertainment isolated up there if that would ever happen, because that's where we decided to keep it in the first place. But at any rate, there were some changes there, and then there was a little bit of some verbiage changes in the other parts of the ordinance that didn't seem like that they're a big deal, because they're kind of things that the planning board assumed would be okay anyway if somebody came in, but it wasn't clear. They talked about, we specifically stated things like rappelling towers or slope style skiing or some places like that somebody might want to do at some point. That we just named those out, especially because people were trying to buy Eagle Bluff and develop that as more of a recreation area. So the planning board thought it would be good just to write some extra stuff in there to kind of maybe spur people on a little bit. So anyway, those things mean that we have to write letters to people and tell them that those changes are going to occur. Or somebody could potentially within 30 days of July 1st come back and file an appeal and say that they didn't get a written notification. And if they didn't get a written notification, then they take it to Superior Court, and then they could potentially become invalid just in those Article 13 issues. So what we're going to do is probably have put together a letter this week, which we're going to put together a letter anyway, and I've got to look at some dates, but was it like Wednesday the 15th or 16th? 18th? It was that Wednesday of that week. If you look on my calendar real quick, it would be great. I think it's like the Wednesday the 18th is what I'm hoping to be able to do, because if you look through the rules, it's quite laborious to figure out how to get it. You have to everybody has to, and the letters we have to advertise 15 days before, 7 days before, and the letters have to be mailed at least 13 days before the hearing. And the hearing has to be like so many days before the vote and stuff like that. I've just got to sit down with Debbie and do some calendar arithmetic to make sure that we get this done. But it can be done basically within 24 to 72 to 48 hours. It can be out of here if it needs to be, to make sure that we fill that square. The only adverse effect of not doing it would be that the changes made in Article 13 wouldn't necessarily be valid changes if someone wanted to file a complaint in the month of July. That would be the only adverse outcome, and everything else would be fine. But I don't want to have any problems for people and create any more expense than we absolutely need to. So that's the concept for that. So at any rate, we're here to open up discussion on the land use ordinance. I know, look at that. Go ahead, Teresa.
I guess the only thing I like to have to say is I kind of prefer a line item veto sometimes, and this is an all or nothing kind of thing. That's just all I have to say.
So,
No, I think every politician wants that.
Yep.
I know. Nobody else wants to say anything, really. Go ahead, Bill.
If there's no one else, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a few comments. That's all right with you?
It's a hearing.
Yeah.
This is a little offset, well, not really offset.
Keep it on topic if you would.
All right. We're a small town, and we should all respect each other. The town's been very, very divided. And there was some really disturbing information that came out in the Bangor Daily News this past week, and I just want to bring it to people's attention. This was based on the article in the Bangor Daily News.
Hey, Bill, probably that we should be focused on the land use ordinance for tonight's hearing.
Okay, well, I was trying to encompass. Okay.
Well, if you could just keep comments to the land use ordinance, and then I'm aware of the other issue. If you can, like, the other issue is probably good for a different meeting.
Okay, I was asked to
No,
bring it
I
up
know,
by
I
a
just-
number of citizens. I was asked to bring it up.
Yeah, well, just kind of to keep it focused. But, I mean, we're concerned about the other issue as well. It's just maybe this isn't the place for that particular issue.
Eric, I feel it is the right place to speak about it, because it is about the land use ordinance in my job, in my participation with the planning board. So, I wish you would let him speak.
Are you comfortable, Deb?
Yep, I'm comfortable.
Okay.
I'm surrounded by great people. Some great people. I'll take it back.
All right, Bill, go ahead.
All right. So about a week ago, there was an article printed on the controversy swirls in Clifton over separate dates for votes on wind farm setbacks and land use rule changes. Immediately after, the Bangor Daily provides for comments to be made on articles that are printed in the paper. So immediately after this article was printed, there was a blogger that put in 2 comments that were so vicious and so vile, so disgusting and slanderous that the Bangor Daily News removed these comments from the article right away. And in deference to Debbie, I did call Debbie, and she was aware of it, and so she knows fully well what I'm doing here tonight, and I just want to report on what I know about this. So I'm going to read the 2 comments because we were able to capture them before the Bangor Daily News took them off their website. Anyway. And the author of these is a blogger by the name of First Mad Max. First Mad Max lives in Hamden. If you are screwing the town administrative assistant, it is easy to get anything passed in Clifton, was the first comment. The second one is, sounds like corruption in Clifton. The town clerk is in it up to her ears. Secret planning board meetings in the church basement. You will get physically attacked if you dare show up and voice an opinion at a town meeting. These bully tactics have got to stop. Time for Clifton to purge the swine from the planning board and select boards. What I know about this is these issues were supposedly handled in-house right here in Clifton about a month ago. Some of these allegations swirled, and the select board addressed it. Never made it to the Bangor Daily News. So how does somebody in Hamden, Maine have an interest on what's going on here in Clifton, Maine? None. It's easy to figure it out. It's because that person in Hamden, Maine, who I am 99% sure I know who it is. I lived in Hamden for over 40 years, and I have a lot of friends left in Hamden. So it's quite common knowledge in Hamden who it is, although within the next 3 to 4 days I hope to have absolute proof. But that person living in Hamden has a relative here in Clifton. That relative is a member of the task force on wind, and to be quite frank with you, if I were on that task force and were a member, I'd be ashamed to be on it because of these comments. Debbie and Kathy are the hardest working people in this town, and they deserve everyone's respect. And they have been just dragged through the coals on this whole process, and it's just not right. So, as I gather any more new information, I will just turn what I know, over to the select board, and they can glean whatever they want. So,
I am proud to call Debbie my friend. She's a good soul. And she doesn't deserve to have her name dragged through the mud like this. It's embarrassing to find out this kind of stuff is being thrown about somebody who works so well for the town. Now, I don't know who this guy is, this online poster. This guy who hides behind a computer spitting out vile accusations at people. But he's a coward. And if he has an accusation to make about me, he should do it to my face.
First of all, I don't even know. This is the first I've heard of these comments. I had nothing to do with these comments. So to insinuate that I did, I'm sorry, I'm Stephanie True. And they're insinuating that I had something to do with this, but I don't. I had actually written up a statement that I planned on speaking if I was attacked tonight, which I'm glad I brought it. And I was actually going to save it for the next select board hearing or select board meeting because I did not want to get up on my soapbox during a public hearing on the LUO. It just didn't seem like the place. Before being elected to this board, I made a comment on the BDN, and I didn't hide behind it. It was my initials. Everybody figured out pretty quickly who it was. But I made a comment on the BDN that seemed to stir up a lot of emotions with the town. I stated that the town officials are unprofessional. I stated this based on my own opinion of watching you conduct business. My first impression of the administrative assistant, Deborah Hodgins, was that she's biased in favor of the wind project. She is unprofessional and rude with opposing viewpoints, and she is using her position in this office to sway voters. And this is how she treated me in the first few months of moving to this town before my affiliation with the Clifton Task Force on Wind. After the town meeting in March, as a newly elected official, I was verbally assaulted by the chair of the planning board, Eric Johns, because of the way I voted on an issue. By not voting in favor of Eric Johns' project, I was yelled at and threatened that we were going to have a problem. It is a sad day in America when at an open town meeting where residents sit side by side and show their hands is no longer an atmosphere that embraces freedom of speech. I have witnessed residents being yelled at and called hateful names by Clifton public officials. I have heard from residents who have been bullied, threatened, and lied to by the Clifton public officials. This behavior is not only juvenile, but it is wrong. This behavior cannot be tolerated by this town. But it is not only tolerated, it is accepted. Instead of reprimanding those town officials who have acted in this way, I was the one accused of being combative and aggressive. Carol Jordan has voiced lots of concerns about how I am to act as a select board member, my place in the pecking order of the town, what I can and cannot do, see, ask, or say. I have been refused to see public documents because they were afraid of what I might do with them. The town spent over $5,000 in legal fees on attorneys' opinions on the LUO, which they chose to ignore, and whether or not I can speak and vote on the issue. You are so afraid of my bias, you cannot even see your own. Every grievance and complaint brought forth from townspeople is met with inaction by the select board. You not only accept this unethical behavior by your officials, you are commending them with your applause. It is sickening to watch. By not condemning this behavior, you are allowing it to continue, and it is getting worse. I've heard from many people around town that Debbie is assassinating my character to anyone that walks through this door, including my mother-in-law. I have heard a rumor that I was quoted saying that I want to see Eric Johns dead. That is an outright lie. Not only is it hurtful for Mr. Johns to hear that sort of thing, it is damaging the public's perception of me. I would never wish anyone dead, no matter how much I disagree with them. I am sure for every one rumor I hear, there are 10 more that I don't. These rumors must stop. stop. It is malicious and illegal.
Sure is.
I understand some of you have very strong feelings about the wind project. I have always been respectful of your right to that opinion. I have not yelled at you, called you names, or tried to sabotage your reputation with the public. I have many relationships with people of different opinions. I do not let differences stand in the way of family and friendships. It is very close-minded of all of you to hate me because of my opinion on this one issue. Most of you I have never met. We have never talked. How can you so quickly judge me and hate me enough to attack me without ever even knowing me? If you are willing to let other people form your opinion of me, then I will accept that. But if you have control over your own mind and are looking for the truth about me, start a conversation. Form your opinion of me fairly and leave the judgments to God. I have a very strong opinion on this issue. I have said that I will do whatever it takes to see it defeated, and I will. I believe that I am right in my convictions. I believe that a large number of citizens stand behind me, and I believe that I am doing what is in the best interest of this town. But I also believe that you feel you are right in your convictions, and you will do whatever it takes to see the project approved. I believe that you believe you are doing what's in the best interest of the town. I respect that right. We disagree. I accept that. My only request is that we all be mature adults, showing compassion and respect to one another. Isn't that what democracy is supposed to be about? I would like to see stability come to Clifton.
I've never heard anything about you saying.
Well, I heard it.
I never heard that anywhere. Actually, I never heard any rumors specifically from you about me, just so you know. I never heard that particular stuff.
Other people are. Everyone that walks through that door is getting an earful from Debbie on me. And I think it's
Kind of
unprofessional.
hard
and
when it's
illegal.
in my own office and I'm not up front.
Just,
Well, you obviously
let's just keep
haven't-
to like some facts, because I will,
Facts,
I don't want on the, you read a number of things, and some of the things that you said, you know, I could identify with, and I probably, you know, on the day of the spring meeting, the annual town meeting, you know, I definitely agree, and I apologize, I shouldn't have come on so strong, you know, I was already elevated because of, you know, everything's going on that day and stuff like that, and that was like one more thing that tipped over, and I thought, you know, from me to you, I shouldn't have done that, I agree with you, okay, and I do apologize, it was uncalled for, and it was definitely unprofessional, and should never have happened, okay?
Thank you.
So
I accept
I
your
definitely agree with you on that, it was a bad thing for me to do. Getting to some of the points that you were bringing up regarding the discussion with Dave Sevchek. Okay, there were two things that you know I found, you know, that maybe it wasn't explained to you, or you didn't understand about that, because I was involved directly with that first go around with Dave Sevchek on the letter from the attorney, because it came to me from Dave Sevchek as what's the word for it, client confidentiality, okay? It was sent to me directly. So I've never had a select board member or whatever, I'd never been in this situation before. I didn't know what to do, so I called Carol, okay, because she's like the chief point of contact with Dave Sevchek, not me, and I wanted to confer with her. And Dave, on Monday, was the first day that you asked. Dave was in Boston picking his kids up from college. On Tuesday, you know, you called back again, it was his 50th birthday, so I don't think he was really readily available that day. By the time Carol could talk to him, it was Wednesday.